Hi, we're back. I see you've made it through all the introduction material, and we're on week 1, and we're talking about research. This week's topic is, what is research? So you have some notes there, 3 different PowerPoint slides for you to look at. You have your books to read, and I just wanted to give you say hello to you this week, and just give you a little bit of discussion about what is research and why do you need to take this class. As I mentioned in the intro video, some of you may not think you want to be researchers, and so you may be wondering, why do I have to take this class? I don't want to do research myself. Well, what's important for you to remember is that as a graduate student, a person holding a master's degree when you graduate, if that's your goal, and I mean, I'm sure everybody's goal is to graduate. I mean, if you're a master's student, the idea is that someone holding a master's degree is an expert in a content area. They are a critical consumer of the literature, meaning the research that's out there. They're able to look at a study and tell somebody if it's credible or not, if the results are something that somebody should take into consideration, or if they should continue looking elsewhere. It's a very important job to be able to do that, and the person holding a master's degree is considered an expert and somebody who is able to critically consume the literature. So even if you don't want to do research yourself, this class is here for those of you who are pursuing a master's degree to learn how to critically consume it. And the best way to know how to critically consume something is to understand everything about it and know how to do it yourself, should you need to. They say the best way to learn about something is to try to teach it. Well, that's sort of the same idea. If you are a parent educator and you have a parent who comes to you and says, I just saw something on the news. I just found out that child care is terrible for children's social development. They talked about it on the Today Show. What do I do? Should I quit my job? You need to be able to say, that's not my area of expertise, but let me do some research for you. And next week when you come back to class, let's save a few minutes after and talk. And then you need to do that research. Go look it up and find out what study was reported on the Today Show. What was their methodology? How did they come up with their findings? Are these credible findings? So that you can then go back and answer the question of your client. So hopefully that helps you see why it is so important that you take this course. Whether you want to do research yourself or not, the fact that you hold a graduate degree in a content area indicates to others that you're an expert in the field, and that you're able to critically consume the literature and tell people what things they should really give credibility to and what things may have methodological problems that they need to take into consideration as they interpret the findings. Okay? So, why do we have to do research though? Why can't we just, I have a question, I get this all the time in graduate classes. I have a question, why can't I just ask it? Why can't I have a question, why can't I just go do a study? Well, the first thing, as I mentioned in the intro, the first thing you've got to do, I think I mentioned it in the intro, first thing you have to do if you have a question is find out what have people done in the first place. So research, scientific inquiry has steps in a process, which we'll get into in a few minutes. Now, if I'm just, by human nature, I just ask a question, there's a lot of pitfalls to that, which your textbook talks about in great detail, and I'll just touch upon. One thing is we might have inaccurate observations. If we all met together and I took all of us out on the street and said, watch Bell Avenue for 20 minutes, write down everything you see, and when you come back, tell me what happens on Bell Avenue between noon and 12:20 on a Tuesday afternoon. Well, first of all of you are going to write down different things because you're all going to have a different focus. Secondly, 2 of you might have watched the same thing, but you might have very different interpretations of what you saw. Third, who can say that what happens on this Tuesday from 12 to 12:20 on Bell Avenue is what happens every Tuesday from 12 to 12:20 on Bell Avenue? And then can we generalize that to other days, other times? So you're starting to see the problem. You have to have a systematic plan for how you're going to answer these questions. And so that touched a little bit on the second point that your book talks about, which is overgeneralization. We don't want to say that, oh, I saw this today, and that must be how it is. I had a student at a different university who wrote an observation of a child, and on the first observation day wrote a journal about how this child was spoiled. It was a 2-year-old who wouldn't share in class, and she felt this child was spoiled, and she began talking about how her parents must let her get away with anything she wants to at home, and that's probably why she was the way she was. And I had to say, whoa, we just don't have enough data to make that claim. You're overgeneralizing. Okay. Then we have selective observation, and this is where we might make an effort to find cases that don't necessarily fit a general pattern. Or we might only see what confirms our hypothesis and ignore, or subconsciously even, not see what doesn't. In the Research Cafe this week, we have an interesting exercise. Those of you who want to participate, and I encourage, as I said, I encourage every single person to go, and even if you're not going to post, to go and just get in touch with the media, get in touch with the material. There's a series of frontline videos there for you that sort of really exemplifies selective observation for you. And I think it's really interesting. So I encourage all of you to go look at that and see what a detriment that could be to research and to human interaction. And then we also can sometimes run into illogical reasoning. So what is the scientific process then? How do we do research? And I mentioned, if we're a master's level student, we're taking this class and we're understanding research so we can be a critical consumer of it. If we're at the doctoral level in this class, we're taking this class because we need to learn how to generate this knowledge ourselves. That's the difference in many people's definition between a master's degree and a doctorate degree. At the doctoral level, you're expected to be a producer of research, a generator of this knowledge. So how do we do research? What is the scientific method like? This is in your notes on one of the PowerPoint slides, but I'll go quickly through. We have an idea or a question. And the first thing we do when we have that idea or that question is we go to literature. Has somebody already answered this question? If they have, we get our answer and we move on. But maybe we think as we're reading, maybe nobody's answered the question. Then the question arises as, well, why haven't they? Maybe it's a question that really doesn't deserve an answer or need an answer. Or maybe it's a brand new topic and nobody's been out there doing it. What you're trying to identify in this literature search is a gap in the literature. So you have a question, you go to the literature, does it answer it for you? You're thinking, maybe you think no, and in order to go on to the next steps, you have to have identified that gap. You have to think, no, it did not answer my question. I want to know about this, and nobody's done this yet. So that's the process of the literature review. That's the goal of the literature review. You're telling us what is the state of knowledge in this area at this time, and what are the gaps. Okay? And then you generate some hypotheses. You had a question, you did a literature review, you got all this information now, and so what do you think's going on? What is your tentative explanation for that? Then you collect your data, and you have to have a very systematic plan for doing so. Okay, if I want to know what goes on Bell Avenue on any given day from 12 to 12:20, I can't just watch on a Tuesday. And I can't just watch for 1 week. I'm probably going to have to watch at random days over a period of many months to be able to come up with some sort of theme in that activity. And we'll talk more about how to design your methodology so that you are being systematic in your data collection. Then you have your data analysis, and you have to make sure that you're collecting data that can be analyzed in the way you hope to, and you have to make sure you choose analyses that can answer the question that you want. If you want to know if there are group differences between red cars and blue cars on Bell Avenue on Tuesdays, you can't do a correlational study. You would have to have something that tests for group differences, like an ANOVA or a t-test or something. And we'll get more into that later too, don't worry. And then you make your interpretations, and you draw your conclusions, which is what goes in your discussion section, which we won't get to probably, but you'll get to read some people's discussion sections. And then we want to know if we can replicate it. And lots of people will try to replicate your study. A lot of times within a study you replicate on purpose so that you can establish reliability. And of course theory is a huge factor. Theory is sort of the driving force behind everything that you do. And we'll get more to that as the semester progresses as well. But hopefully this little video gives you just a little taste, a little clarification or a little intro to the PowerPoint slides and the book chapters for this week, and helps you understand better why you're in this class. And if you want to do research, you already know. But if you don't, hopefully you know now and you're ready to jump in with both feet and get to know what you need to know. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm on the boards.